Hi, welcome to the Knitting Expat Podcast. This is episode 91. My name is Mina and I'll be your host today. Thank you so much for joining me. Today is Tuesday, the 3rd of January 2017, so Happy New Year. New Year, new beginnings. And sorry for all the sirens in the background. It's a rather wet and grey day here in New York, which is where I'm coming to you from. And for some reason there are a ton of sirens going off, even though we're on the 19th floor. I hope that's not too loud. Anyway, so I want to say my name. Get very loud. So my name is Mina. I'll be your host today. Like I said, I'm coming to you from New York City in New York. And yeah, this is actually going to be if you are new, thank you so much for joining me today and checking out the podcast. And if you are returning, thank you so much for coming back. If you are returning, you'll know that we are currently in a temporary accommodation situation until we move into our apartment. And we're actually moving in tomorrow, so this will be the last podcast from this place. And by we, I mean me, my husband, our two cats. Derek is here and Hugo's over there, and our little nugget. I'm currently 33 weeks pregnant. I'm losing track. 33 weeks pregnant with a little girl, and yeah, we're looking forward to moving into our home, getting ourselves set up. Hopefully our furniture will arrive within the next week or so. It's due to arrive at the port in the US here on the 7th of January. So fingers crossed. I have no idea how long it's going to take to clear customs. It could take anything from a week to however long they want to take. So fingers crossed they don't take that long and it goes through relatively smoothly. So we will see about that. But yeah, so if you want to find me online anywhere else, show notes, the Ravelry group, Instagram, whatever, everything's linked down below this video on YouTube in the description box. And wherever else you're watching this video, there should be links somewhere around it to other places. Yes, I also want to say a massive thank you to everyone who has introduced themselves in the introductions thread. I do read all the messages, I just don't have the time, and it does feel a little bit repetitive, like I'm saying the same thing again and again when I reply to those messages in the past. So I've just decided not to reply to them anymore, not because I don't want to, just because I don't have a lot of time to do that. And like I said, it just feels like a rather canned response, but I do appreciate it and I do really enjoy getting to know a bit more about you guys. So thank you for that. So like I said, I'm 33 weeks pregnant now. She is kicking like crazy a lot of the time. I notice it more obviously when I'm not moving around, because when I'm moving I don't notice the kicks as much, but and it's not so much the kicking, it's more like quite forceful pushing almost from inside, and it happens more or the most in the evenings when we're getting ready for bed. If I'm lying down in bed or something, I can really feel her start to go, and then I'll get Perry to put his hand on my belly or something, and he'll be just like, yeah, no, she's really going for it now. And it's nice because you can finally like really feel her moving around, whereas before or earlier in the pregnancy he wasn't always sure if it was just me breathing or if it was the baby. So that's nice for him as well. And yeah, so that's that. I'll talk more about general stuff a bit later in the episode as well, towards the end. But first off, really quickly, we have a coupons code thread in the group, so make sure you pop on in there and check out what coupons are currently active and available for you guys to check out and use if you're in the need for some enabling. And yeah, I'll just quickly run over this week's format. We have there's a new podcast I want to talk to you guys about, some finished objects and works in progress. I don't have any acquisitions to actually share with you guys this week. Some Knitalong giveaway news, questions and answers. There are actually quite a few questions this week, so I have a few to answer there, and a bit of a week in review. So start off with podcasts. So it's been a while since I've actually spoken about a podcast on this podcast, but I did do this for quite regularly when I first started podcasting. Was every week I would talk about a couple of podcasts that I enjoyed watching or that were new to me, and I've kind of stopped doing that just because I haven't really been watching that many new podcasts, and I've been watching most of the same ones again and again. And if you go on my YouTube channel, you should be able to see what podcasts I'm subscribed to. So you can always check that out there if you're interested in what ones I do watch. But I'm not going to be creating some sort of master list or anything, because then I have to remember to update it, and I wouldn't do that. But whenever I do start watching a new one, I will try and remember to tell you guys about it. So one that I have started watching, and there's only one episode at the moment, brand new podcast, is the Ninja Chickens podcast with Maria. And Maria is someone who I've been following on Instagram for a while now, and she has some beautiful photos and stuff on there, and she's very into sort of like naturally dyed and sort of like natural yarns and wools and stuff like that, and it's very interesting to follow what she's up to. Anyway, she just started a new podcast, and so I decided to check her out, and it was really interesting actually. She was possibly the first time I've watched a knitting podcast where I've felt really like I finally found another knitter who's very much whose philosophy with knitting, I guess, or thoughts about knitting are very similar to my own. Not to say that no one else thinks this way, or that the way other people think are wrong or anything like that. It's just I find that I don't necessarily relate in the same way. I don't have the same urges to cast on like 100 things, or to have a lot of languishing whips, or to have 100 projects on the go at the same time, or 10 projects, or however many. I've always been, I started out as a very monogamous knitter, and even now I'm much happier when I only have 2 or 3 things on the go at one time. I don't like to have languishing whips. I don't like to faff around with my projects. I'm a product knitter. I do enjoy finishing things and having finished objects and stuff like that. And you know, within the first 10-15 minutes of Maria's episode, I very much distinctly got the impression that she was exactly the same way, or at least very similar. She talked about how she used to be a monogamous knitter, and she prefers only having 3 or 4 projects on the needles at any one time. She's also very much a product knitter. She was saying actually at one point she had to stop herself from finishing a project so she would have a work in progress to show on her podcast, and I totally related with that because I've done that in the past myself. So so that was really, really interesting, and it wasn't something I was necessarily expecting, because I very much felt like at least within the podcasting community, or the community that I've been interacting with online, it's not I think that there are a lot more process knitters out there than necessarily product knitters, and that's not a bad thing or a good thing. It's not one way or the other. I'm not saying one's better than the other. It's just we're very different. It's just a very different way of going about it, and I enjoy knitting, full stop. I wouldn't be doing it if I didn't, but I do also really enjoy the finished product. But yeah, anyway, so I hope that made some sort of sense. I wasn't trying to like offend anybody by saying that, but I hope you understood what I was trying to get at. Anyway, Maria's podcast is very interesting, and obviously she talks a bit more about just knitting. She also, she does like urban homesteading, and has like they have chickens and stuff like that. So it's actually really interesting to hear a bit about her life. They have like quite a bit of land, and how they're living off their land and stuff like that. It's really interesting. So make sure you go and check that out. I will have her podcast linked in the show notes, and yeah, so make sure you go and check out Maria's podcast. She's only just started, so you don't have a whole backlog of episodes to catch up on, which for some may be a good thing. Right, moving on to finished objects. So the first 2 finished objects are socks. Surprise, surprise. The first up are Perry's cobblestone socks, and these are socks I was knitting him for Christmas. I'll just hold up one, it might be easier for you to see. There we go. So this is the cobblestone pattern, which is from the second pattern in my Beyond Vanilla part 1. And I did the modified sort of heel flap, which is a pattern. I had a couple of questions about this after last week's podcast, but it's a pattern I'm going to be writing up and I'll be including in my patterns going forward, and I will probably go back and issue it as like an update to my past patterns. It's just a method to add a little bit of extra room in the instep area of the foot when you're using a short row heel. And I don't think I'm unique or the first person to come up with this idea, but I've not seen it used very often or in other patterns, so I will be writing that up. And he has actually already worn these once, which makes me feel quite nice. I'm quite happy because I finished these socks and I went to wash them, and then Perry was just like, oh, I was going to wear those today. It's like, oh, it makes me feel nice. It makes me feel happy to know that he does enjoy wearing these socks. So that's that. So they've been worn once and they've been machine washed and then laid out to dry. So that's, yeah, and the yarn is by Nooch Fibre in the Midtown sock, which is a 75-25 merino nylon blend, and it's in the Honor colorway. So they are clean. There's just bits of cat fur and everything, and to be honest, I have just come to accept the fact that cat fur is just going to be a fibre content in all of my clothes from now on. There's nothing I can do about it. It doesn't matter how much I lint roll or wash things, there's still cat fuzz on everything. So that's sock number 1, and this was knit on 2.25 US ones. So I actually, this morning I had to stop him from wearing these again because they were laid out to dry yesterday on the windowsill, and I could see him going for them. I was like, no, you can't wear those today. I need to show them on the podcast, and then you can have them. And then you can have them back. So the second pair of socks I have to show you are my Christmas Eve cast on socks, and this was pair 90 for the year, my last pair of socks for 2016, and this is in Wollonvine yarns in the Deck the Halls colorway on Kristen's Footsie base. I absolutely love the Footsie base. It's a BFL nylon blend. It's a really lovely ply structure. And again, I've actually worn these already. I wore these on New Year's Day. I thought, new year, new pair of socks. And yeah, I completely forgot I hadn't shown them on the podcast yet. So finished. So I washed these last night and I popped them back on the blockers to get them to look nice. But yeah, again, these were hand washed last night because I'd already done the laundry and I didn't have a chance. But I normally, after the first time, I only hand wash socks the first time after they've been finished and block them, and I only do that so they look nice when I show them to you guys on the podcast. Otherwise they go straight in the washing machine. And again, I did this with the, I don't know if you're going to be able to see it or not on here, the little heel flap before the short row heel. I've done that technique now enough times that I feel confident in writing it up in a pattern, which I will be doing soon. And once I get a couple of people to test that out, I will issue that as an update to previous patterns that have been released, and then it will be included in all future ones. I will probably do a tutorial for it at some point. I'm just not going to commit to when, because for one thing, I don't have my tripod, so I can't have my setup for filming tutorials, and second of all, baby's coming and I really don't think I'm going to be in any sort of position to do tutorials for at least a few months from now. So at the very earliest, I'm going to say late spring, early summer, I'll probably start doing tutorials again, but until then I'm just not going to commit to doing anything like that. I just know I wouldn't be able to keep up with it. And when it comes down to test knitters, I have said this previously on the podcast several times, and I still get emails and messages from people offering to test knit patterns for me before I've actually announced them as being ready for test knitting, or even if they are ready for test knitting. I have a pool of people that I go to for test knitting, people I've used in the past who haven't let me down and who I trust to be able to complete things by deadlines that I set. If it turns out, and I'll go to them first, I give them first dibs and first choice on any test knits that come up, and if I then don't have enough people who are able to take on test knits at any particular time, I will then announce on either Instagram or the podcast or both, or in the Ravelry group, that I need extra test knitters for specific patterns or whatever. But when people contact me like on a one-off individual basis to say, oh, I'd be interested in test knitting this pattern for you, or this, that, whatever, I can't keep track of those sorts of messages because they get lost in my Ravelry messages thing, and then I'll never be able to find them again, and it's just more work for me to try and keep track of stuff like that. So all I would say is please just wait until I announce that I need testers for something before getting in touch with me about it, if you don't mind. Just otherwise I'll be sending you a message back saying I'm not taking new testers at the moment, and I don't like having to let people down. Okay, so those were the last two works in progress that I had shown you on the last podcast that I did. But after finishing those, I still had like a day or two left before the new year, and I thought I'd try and squeeze in a few extra bits. So I knit another couple of washcloths. So this is also out of Knit Picks Comfy Sport Weight, but this is in the Marina colourway. So I did one in a sort of waffle type stitch. That's a little one. And then I did another one, sort of bigger size, in the Fisherman's Rib to match the other one I did in Fisherman's Rib. So now I've got like 4 little washcloths, 2 slightly bigger sizes and 2 in smaller sizes. So I think we've got a few now, which will be good for the baby. And then I also knit this hat. So if you remember, I showed a while back that I bought 2 skeins of the Brooklyn Tweed Arbor yarn for a design that I was working on. I ended up only needing 1 skein for the cowl pattern that I was working on. I had 1 skein left and I wasn't sure what to do with it, so I just decided to turn it into a plain hat. It's just a plain beanie. It's a little bit slouchy at the back, and this just used slightly less than 1 skein. It used about 50 grams almost, and yeah, it's a nice sort of like slightly slouchy at the back, not too fitted, which is great because if I've got my hair up in a bun, then that fits quite nicely. It's just it doesn't have a folded brim, but I guess you could fold it up if you wanted to. And yeah, I asked Perry if he liked it. He said he did, but that it was like too loose, too big for him. Like he didn't like the fact that it was so slouchy. So maybe if I fold it up for him, he might wear it, because that's a bit more fitted now when you fold up the brim. But if not, I'll see if my brother likes it, or another friend or somebody. I'm sure it will go to a good home. If not, I'll just keep it and wear it myself. And this was, I just knit this on a US 5, no pattern really, it just cast on for a DK weight hat and just knit and sort of just went from there, improvised the decreases. And the decreases on the hat, let me show you. I did the 4-point decrease like that at the top, which I thought was nice and something a little bit different. Then gives a little bit of a, for such a plain hat, it gives a nice little decorative finish. So just keep that on for now. Kittens are both sleeping. This is basically where they are all day. Hugo sleeps in the little dip in my pregnancy pillow under the duvet, and Derek sleeps at the foot of the bed here on my side, and then in the evenings I have to move them to get into bed. Hey buddy. Not sure how clear his face is on the screen, but he's very adorable. Right, so works in progress. First up, I finished everything and I had a bit of time left before the new year, but I didn't really want to cast on anything else, so I decided to pick up my pinwheel scrap blanket. Now the pinwheel scrap blanket is a pattern by me, which you can find on Ravelry, in my Ravelry store, and it's a really simple wet blanket. I designed it to use up scraps for as an alternative to like the mitered square blanket. It does involve some seaming, but because you're doing these big blocks, we're using 8 minis in each block, then you're seaming big blocks together rather than lots of little squares. And so 3 of these were already done, and these 2 are the new blocks that I did recently that I hadn't shown you. And some of you may recognize some of these yarns, and some of you may not, but if you do recognize them, these are some of the yarns that I used in the January Soccer-thon when I did that with Marsha this time last year. So those of you who are new to the podcast, this time last year, Marsha is from the Twitch and Stitch podcast. Marsha actually challenged me to see who, because we're both pretty fast knitters, and she challenged me to see who out of the 2 of us could knit the most pair of socks in a set period of time. Anyway, so we decided, we were chatting back and forth and decided to do it for the month of January. So last year in January, we both cast on and knit like socks like crazy people. Seriously, we were both absolutely nutters, and it still makes me laugh that we even did that and that it happened. I'm just thinking back on it now, going, there is no way I could do that again, at least not for a very long time. Anyway, we ended up knitting 35 pairs of socks each, which is insanity. Anyway, so I decided to include the leftovers into my pinwheel blanket as well. So I've got 2 of the blocks, so 16 of the yarns are in here that I used for socks in that month, which is quite special. And I've seamed the blocks together for this strip of 5, and I used the crochet seam, which is what I have instructions for in the pattern. There's also a tutorial video that goes with that. I've woven in all my ends except the ends from the seams. I'm leaving those until I seam this to the rest of the blanket, in case I need to close up any holes on those corners. So the reason why I haven't seamed this to the blanket yet is because I want to block this strip. I've blocked all the other blocks that have gone in the blanket before seaming them together. I just didn't bother doing that with this, but I want to block this before I attach it, because that way at least I'm attaching blocks that have already been washed and blocked. So I shouldn't have to need to wash the whole blanket at the end once it's done. But just because I haven't shown it in a while, I thought I would show you guys quickly what the rest of the blanket looks like. There's currently 15 squares on the blanket, on the pinwheel scrap blanket. It's pretty big. It's pretty ginormous, and I'm enjoying it. It's actually not that big at the moment. It's not quite my wingspan. It's 5 blocks wide by 3 blocks tall. So once I add this strip, it'll be 4 by 5. I'm thinking either 6 by 5 or 7 by 5 would be a good size. I may go bigger. It just depends how I feel. I have plenty of scraps with me, and I'm knitting plenty of things to have scraps to go into this. So even if my yarn doesn't arrive, I'll be able to keep going with that blanket. Then other works in progress I have to show you. I'll show you a pair of socks first. And this is yarn by Riverstone Yarns. It was sent to me by a lovely viewer. It's an 80-10-10 merino cashmere nylon blend, and it's in the Happy Koi colorway, and it's from British Columbia, so it's from Canada. It's Canadian yarn. This was sent to me by a lovely viewer last year, and this is how it's knitting up. If I can untangle the cables. This is beautiful sort of blues and oranges, and just some of my favorite color combinations, like lovely sort of like greeny blues, and it's knitting up in this sort of like kind of striping pattern. It's one of those yarns that was, you know, it's like half the skein is dyed one color and the other half is dyed another color, and this is what it looks like pulled up. And there we go. And yeah, I'm really enjoying it. I cast these on New Year's Day, knitting. I've been knitting away on them slowly since then. So I'm almost done with the leg. I've got about another 20-ish rows to go before I start the heel. So hopefully that will get done. I'll probably do that today. Probably get those 20 rows done today, and hopefully do the heels as well. Because tomorrow's going to be a busy day, and I'm not going to be able to do anything more than just round and round knitting. I'm not going to be able to focus on heels tomorrow. And I'll get to why later. My next work in progress I'm going to show you is my Cozy Schlanket Mystery Knit Along. So the Cozy Schlanket Mystery, or MCAL Mystery Knit Along, is my first knit along, mystery knit along that I'm hosting. Let me just move some of these out of the way. So the laptop has my notes on it, which is why I need it. But it's the first mystery knit along that I'm hosting, and I'm really excited about it. I'm so happy to see everyone's progress on Instagram and in the group. I've been trying really hard to check in on the group 2-3 times a day to answer questions, and I just keep up with the chatter in the threads. And thank you so much to everyone else who is participating, who is also jumping on the threads and answering questions and stuff, so people don't have to wait for me necessarily to get in there to help them out. There have been a few instances where it generally seems to be with newer knitters who aren't necessarily sure, and Derek's had enough of my chatter, who aren't necessarily sure of something or other. They're asking questions for help on how to do certain things. And I'm really grateful that there are so many people participating who are willing to jump in and provide help, and not making those people have to wait for me necessarily. So thank you so much for that. And like I said, I've been really enjoying seeing everyone's progress. I've knit my first sample out of an Aran weight yarn, out of Peace Fleece. and so I chose to do this version out of a worsted weight. So I've written the pattern with the intention that it could be knit out of either worsted or Aran weight. And a few people are doing alternatives. You can also do fingering weight held double. As long as you have enough yardage, that's what's called for in the pattern, then you should be fine. The only difference is if you do go down to like a DK or something, your shawl might come out a bit smaller. I can't guarantee what size it will end up. So, and also finished size will depend a lot on how aggressively you block it and how loose your gauge is. So the yarns that I've chosen are these three, and it's by the Fibre Company, and it's their worsted Fibre Company Cumbria yarn in the worsted weight. So the colours are this sort of like fuchsia colour is Cowberry, the teal blue is Eden Valley, and this sort of chartreusey green colour is Helvellyn. And I really like those three together. I didn't really talk about it too much last week, but I wanted to go for something that was a little bit outside my comfort zone in terms of colours. I generally tend to stay away from pink, but I quite like fuchsia, and I like how this fuchsia works with the other two colours. I really love teals, and I don't feel like I use it enough in my projects. And I really like this sort of chartreusey green colour. I was originally going to do the fuchsia and the chartreuse with like a more neutral beige, but I really loved how the teal popped with it. So something a little bit outside my comfort zone, but still colours that I really enjoy, and I think they work really nicely together, and it'll be a really nice sort of bright shawl to wear in the winter and early spring. So this has ended up being my colour 1. This has ended up being colour 2, and this is going to be colour 3. I had originally intended this to be colour 2, but it was only when I was halfway through the first clue, knitting with this colour, that I realised that I'd made the mistake. And by that point I was like, you know what, it doesn't matter, it's going to look good anyway, I'm going to enjoy it. I think it's going to look fine, because at some point or another every colour is next to the other colour, so it's not like, I mean, they're all going to mix together at some point in the pattern. And yeah, so first clue's out. I'm really impressed to see so many people have finished with their first clue so quickly. It is worsted weight, so it does knit up quite fast, and like I said, I'm really enjoying seeing all the different colour combinations that people are coming up with. And yeah, so I'm going to show you the progress that I've made. I finished clue 1, and I actually finished it on the first day as well. I just had really crap lighting, so I haven't been able to share a photo yet. I am really not enjoying the lighting in this particular apartment that we're in right now, unless I'm sat right here where I am now, right in front of the window, which is less than a metre in front of me. Everything's really dark in this apartment. So yeah, so I'm really quickly going to show you what this looks like. If you don't want to see it, you can turn away for like the next 30 seconds or so. I'm not going to talk too much about the design details, so you don't have to mute it or anything, but this is what the first clue currently looks like. So we've just got the first two colours used in the clue 1. And yeah, it's just curling up because it will do at this point. It won't at the end. But yeah, so that's where I'm at with that at the moment. Really enjoying it. So I'm doing the worsted weight, which is being knit on 5mm needles. And I have a really long cable on my needles just because I'm going to need it later in the shawl. And yeah, so clue 2 will be out this coming Sunday, and I will do it as soon as I can in the morning. If I'm up past midnight on Saturday night, then I will do it then before I go to bed. Otherwise it'll be first thing Sunday morning whenever I wake up. I'm not setting set times for when I'm going to issue the clues, just because I don't want to disappoint anybody by doing that and then failing. So okay, I'm going to take a quick break and then I'll be back in a second. Okay, so whilst I was still talking about the mystery knit along, I wanted to say that I know I haven't really spoken much about how long the knit along is going to go on for and stuff like that, but I think I'm going to have it run until at least the end of January. The last clue comes out a week before the end of the month, so realistically everyone should have enough time to finish it. But I do know that some people are slower knitters, some people don't have as much time to knit, so we'll see how things go. I had originally wanted to do it by the end of January so I could do prize draws and get prizes out and everything before baby shows up, but if people want until the end of February, I'm happy to extend the deadline until then. Like I said, I haven't set a particular deadline yet. We'll just see how things go after the next clue comes out, and I'll sort of gauge the reaction in the threads and with people taking part. If you feel like you want more time to finish the shawls, then we can extend it until the end of February. And yeah, I just might be a little bit slower at getting prizes out at that point, but yeah. And I haven't completely decided on what I'm going to do for prizes yet. There will be at least 1 or 2 prizes for this knit along, but once I figured out what those will be, I will definitely let you guys know. And so that's knit along news really. But in terms of upcoming projects, I do have one project upcoming that I've kind of started but not, I've swatched for it, and that's a cardigan. So I really wanted to knit a sort of a top-down cardigan with contiguous sleeves, because I really like that construction and I like the fit on the shoulders and how it looks. It gives the look of a set-in sleeve without actually doing a set-in sleeve. And I've knit a few cardigans that use that construction. I've really enjoyed it. I wanted to do it with a steek down the middle, and I wanted to make it a quicker knit. Why not? Why do all the purling when you don't need to? And I also want to install a zipper on this cardigan rather than doing a button band and buttons. I feel like a zipper would be much more practical for me, and yeah, I've installed a zipper on a cardigan once before, and it turned out pretty well. My mum uses that cardigan, so I just need to do a little bit of research about zippers and zipper lengths, so I can make sure that I knit the cardigan to an appropriate length that's gonna suit whatever zipper I choose. So on that note, I swatched, and the pattern I am going for is the it's same but different. And who's the designer? Sorry, I don't have a printed copy of it. Oh, okay. The designer's name's not on the pattern, I don't think. Not that I can see. Alright, I will make sure to include the designer's information and a link to the pattern in the show notes for you guys. But it's called Same but Different, and this is the contiguous version. There's also a raglan version, so I'm doing the contiguous sleeve version, and this is just my swatch. And I haven't actually measured it yet. I did this last night, and I washed it and I laid it out to dry. I didn't pin it out or anything, because when the garment's finished I'm not going to be pinning it out, but just wanted to check my gauge. I think my gauge is pretty much spot on. I just need to measure it and double check. I think it was like half a stitch or 1 stitch out before washing, so I think with washing that would have evened out. And the yarn I'm using is this yarn, this collection of Yumminess, which again you may or may not recognize. I went to Rome last year in March with my family, and this was some of the yarn I picked up in Italy, souvenir yarn, and it's an Italian yarn. It's country silky, made in Italy. It's 100% merino, I believe, yeah. 100% pure new wool, shrink resistant treated merino. And it's 50-gram balls, 200 meters in each ball. So I have 3 of the grey, and 1 each in 5 other colors. So I have a yellow, an orange, a red, a green, and then sort of like a navy color. I think that's navy in here. Is that navy or a dark grey? Oh, it's a dark grey. So I'm thinking of doing some sort of gradient, sort of color blocking, striping thing. The pattern is designed to just be a single color cardigan. I can show you what it looks like actually. That might be easier. That's what the cardigan will look like. You see that there? And actually what I've realized, I was reading through the pattern, and I really only want the pattern for the up to the sleeve separation. That's really all it is. From there on I'm doing my own thing. I want it for the instructions for the contiguous sleeve and the initial increasing until you get for the neckline and the top, just this top section. Essentially from here on down I'm going to be doing my own thing, in terms of stitch counts, in terms of colors, in terms of design and stuff like that. So I'm not doing button band. It's got some pleats and tucks and stuff on the sides, which I'm not going to be doing. It's got sort of a shape shaping on the sides to create a sort of more pointed front, so it's longer on the front and back than at the sides. I'm not going to be doing that. I'm going to be adding ribbing to the hem and the cuffs and the neckline. The pattern doesn't call for that. So things like that. I'm going to be changing quite a few things. That's really not going to be the same as the pattern, but like I said, I only wanted it for the top part of the design anyway, which was the bit that I liked. It's got some nice little pleats on the shoulders here, which I liked, and I wanted to incorporate that. So that's where I am on that. I've just watched for it. I probably won't cast this on until Thursday at the earliest. Like I said, tomorrow's a busy day. I'm not going to have time to work on it, and the first section, like this section, is the really sort of intensive part where you've got to pay attention to the pattern and follow everything carefully. So with that, I think next up we have the questions and suggestions thread. So I'm going to pop into that thread now and see what questions we have. So we have a few. So first up was from Arty Farty Mac, and she says, she's from the UK, and she asks, I'd like to know what your recommendations are for really simple knit jumpers. I'm looking for something ideally stockinette in the round, as I'm really slow perler. I have a beautiful variegated sparkly DK yarn which I'd love to cast on, but just needs a very simple garment that is totally brainless to show it off. So yeah, you could do, I know the flax pattern by Tin Can Knits is a very simple top down raglan sweater. It does have a garter panel down the sleeves which you can just omit and do it in plain stockinette. That is designed for worsted weight rather than DK, but if you do a gauge swatch and you're not afraid of doing a little bit of maths, you can quite easily adapt it to suit your gauge. Secondly, there's a pattern by Susan B. Anderson called I think it's like a simple raglan or something, and it was done as a knit along, but it's basically you knit your gauge swatch and then she gives you formulas to fill in based on your gauge swatch numbers, and you can just sort of do a top down raglan based on whatever gauge you've got with whatever yarn you're using and needles, and that's a good one. There are loads of really simple just top down raglan jumpers out there online that are free to use, so I do think the Tin Can Knits ones are pretty good. I'm trying to think of other ones right now. I can't think of any that are specifically DK because I don't think I've really ever knit a DK sweater myself. But if anyone out there has recommendations for a really good, simple, top-down DK, not necessarily top-down, she just says recommendations, but a really simple knit jumper, sort of plain stockinette for a DK weight yarn that would be good for a beginner who doesn't like purling, please let me know or let us know in the comments of in the episode thread for this video, and yeah, I'd be interested to hear about that as well. So sorry I couldn't provide any specific pattern information, but like I said, I do think the Tin Can Knits flax pattern can be quite easily adapted for that. Then the next question is from T. Pring, who's from the US, and she says, since she was wondering if I would put up some kind of sock yarn comparison chart based on my experiences, like durability, ply, availability, care instructions, etc. She says she's going to knit socks this year if it kills her, but doesn't know where to begin with all the ton of yarn choices. Okay, quite frankly, I don't have the time and I probably won't be doing that. A chart comparison for sock yarn, it sounds great and in theory it would be a good idea, but in practicality of doing something like that is just really impractical. There are so many choices out there, it's not an easy choice, not an easy thing to do. I haven't knit with all the sock yarn there is, so it wouldn't even be that comprehensive. I wouldn't feel comfortable doing it, and it would only be based on my experiences. It's not something, and you know, yarn choices and preferences and stuff are very much personal choice, and what you enjoy working with. So sorry, that was Derek sneezing if you could hear that. Anyway, my point being, I don't think I'll be doing that. One, I don't have the time for it, and two, I don't think it would necessarily be the most useful thing because it wouldn't be all that comprehensive. But if you're just starting out knitting socks and you want some suggestions for sock yarns to try out initially, any of the big sort of German commercial sock yarns like Opal, Regia, Lana Grossa, those are all great ones to start with. They're really durable, hard wearing, pretty good standard 75-25 wool nylon sock blends. Hey Derek? Don't know what's up with him. Those are good ones to start with. If you want something that's from the US, like if those are too expensive for you, Cascade Heritage sock is another good one to start with. It's very soft. It's I think it's a 75-25 merino nylon blend, but that's also pretty good for socks. Cascade also do the Heritage Prince, which is a really good sock yarn as well. It's also quite soft. Yeah, those are my suggestions if you're beginning to knit socks and you want yarn that's... The Cascade yarns are relatively inexpensive as well, so a skein of Cascade Heritage sock you can get for... I'm not actually sure how much it is in dollars, but it's not that much. So yeah, but that would be my suggestion. Or Patons Croix socks. Again, inexpensive, durable, not a bad place to start if you don't want to spend too much money on sock yarn and you just want to try it out. The next question is from Branwyn May, and she says, I have to say your question made me laugh, but she says, "Hi Mina, I could listen to you talk forever. Your voice and accent are just lovely. Did you take elocution classes or is your accent regional?" Which made me laugh. I've never taken elocution classes. My accent is, I guess, regional. I'm from London in the UK. This is just how I grew up talking, I guess. The way that I guess everyone in my school and where I lived spoke like this, I guess. So that's how I grew up speaking. I grew up in northwest London. So yeah, this is just how I speak. I didn't really ever take classes for that. So yeah, it's actually quite funny because I also speak Farsi, which is the language spoken in Iran. I grew up speaking that at home, and I never really realised it. But it was only when I was probably about a teenage sort of age 16, 17, when we went to Iran one time, and one of my cousins mentioned that I spoke Farsi with a very British accent, which I thought was hilarious. And at the time I was like, no, I don't. And it was only after someone had mentioned it that I started to hear it, and now I hear it in my head when I speak Farsi as well. I hear the British accent coming through, but no, it's quite funny with my accent. It does change over time depending where I am. When I lived in Vancouver for a year, I came back with a lot of Canadianisms, and a lot of my accent had changed a lot in that year. I had adapted and picked up a lot of the words. I do find even here now that if I go somewhere and I'm asking for a glass of water, I either have to repeat myself several times, or I have to just suck it up and pronounce it the way the Americans pronounce it, so I can actually get what I'm asking for. And it's not just with water, it's other things as well, but it's just one of those things. I'm interested to see how my accent changes whilst we live here, or if it changes. I imagine there will be some slips in my accent eventually. But yeah, anyway, so no classes, no, but thank you for your question. Then, just see. Okay, so next question is from Charm3, and they've asked, "I really enjoy hearing your stats, and I'm interested to know more about how you go about recording your statistics. I would like to start a similar process in 2017, but I'm not sure where to start. I'm particularly interested to know about your method of recording the various stats you find useful and those that are less useful. I have not read through your entire question thread, so if you've already answered this question, I would be happy to be referred to that section." Okay, so I haven't really answered this question before, or at least not for a very long time. I know at the beginning of last year, beginning of 2016, I did post a spreadsheet that I use for tracking my knitting, and I'll show you quickly what that spreadsheet looks like. So I have it, sorry about the noise, but I have it, I call it my 2017 knitting plan, so that's for this year. And this is how I have, this is the project tab, and this is how I have it set up. I'm not sure if you're going to be able to see that or not. There we go. So that's how I have it set up. So I have a reference number, which is basically just telling me it's just a running number, I have the project name, needles that I'm using, the yarn that I'm using, date started, date finished. Then I have, then I have total grams used, so that's the finished weight of the project. And then I calculate the yardage or meterage used, and then how many skeins were used for that project. And that's whole skeins used, not partial skeins. So if I've only used like 1.5 skeins, I'll still count it as 2, because I don't count the other half as still being stashed. That's just my method. And then at the bottom I have formulas that sort of just tally up those totals at the bottom of the spreadsheet, and then throughout the year I just add more rows in as I go. And then I also have a section at the bottom for my my scrap blanket. So at the beginning of 2016 I had 20 blocks finished for my pinwheel scrap blanket, and then I have a little sort of formula thing here to calculate the number of blocks and grams and meters used per block as I go. And then here I just sort of colour coordinate the different project types based on, so socks are blue and different projects, different colours, and then I can just keep a running total throughout the year of how many I've knit of each, and then I can sort of colour code the projects further up as I go. Then I have a yarn spreadsheet tab, and I'll quickly show you this one as well. And this one I have set up slightly differently. So again, I have a reference number running down the side, then I have the yarn weight, the company, the colorway name, or any other sort of specifics about the yarn. And then I have, the grams per skein, so if it's a 50 gram skein or 100 gram skein or whatever skein it is. And then this is existing, so for 2017 this is everything that's in my stash before the year began, and then new is anything that's added to my stash in this year. So I can have a separate total. I know what's in my stash at the beginning of 2017 and how much I've added to it, and then this next column is the total number that I have in my stash. So 1 plus 1 = 2, and then this will tell you total grams I have in stash. So if I have 2 50 gram skeins, this will total 100. This column tells me how many meters I have, or you could have it as being yards. This is how much I've used, this is how much is left. And then here I'll mark if the skein's been used or not, and then if it's not used it tallies here, and then that totals up at the top here. And I have a couple of formulas that figures out how much yarn I've used, how many skeins I've used, and I also have one that tells me how many new skeins versus how many skeins if I've got more skeins in my stash than I've used, or vice versa. So I hope that makes sense. And then I have a similar sort of color coding thing on this page as well, but that's just for me. And again, I just add at the bottom as well, add in extra rows as I buy yarn when I need it. So that's pretty much what I do, or how I use the spreadsheet to keep track of my yarn. I just find it easier because if I want to work on a project and I think I might have a kind of a yarn that would work for it, I can just pop in here and have a quick little look and see what I have and in my stash. I know it doesn't have pictures next to it, but usually my stash is with me, so I can check on here, and if I need to remind myself what the color looks like, I can go and have a quick look in my stash. My stash isn't so big that I can't find what I'm looking for, and up until we moved, my stash was all out on display, so it was quite easy to find everything. But we'll have to see how things go once our stuff arrives, and I have to figure out where my stash will go, because I'm not going to have a dedicated craft room in our new apartment. I'll probably have a little nook in the corner of the living room. Thankfully my boys are really good with yarn. I've left projects out, I've left project bags open, like yarn all over the place in this little apartment that we've been in whilst we've been here, and they literally have zero interest in destroying anything. I don't know if you can see Derek in the background, he's on that sofa. I don't know what he's doing. He's usually asleep right now, maybe I'm just disturbing him by talking so much. But anyway, so that's how I do that, and if I can figure out a way, pretty sure there is a way because I did it last year. I will try and include a link to like a blanked out version of that spreadsheet, so if anyone wants to use that, you can just download it and use it as well. The other reason I like it as well is that I can use it offline, like so if I don't have Ravelry or if I'm not on an internet connection, I'm not stuck without access to my stash information or project information and stuff like that. And I just find it so much easier than Ravelry. I just find it a bit cumbersome having to fill in the project pages or the yarn pages and stuff like that. It doesn't suit me, I don't like it, so I don't do it, I don't use it. And the last question is from Winton B, and she says, now that you're in New York, have you replaced your Swift? I've been meaning to. I have one of the wooden Knit Pick Swifts in my cart on Knit Picks for ages now, and I just haven't clicked order yet. Don't know why. I need to do that at some point, but I will be getting a new Swift soon, hopefully. And with that, I think I've answered all the questions that existed, and I will briefly or quickly move on to the week in review. So Hugo, for those of you who watched last week and who've been keep following on Instagram, will know that he had a bit of a bout with sort of cystitis last week. He's still not completely better. He got better on the medication that the vets gave him, and then the day after his medication ran out, he sort of went back to, sorry, camera was having focusing issues for some reason, but so what I was saying was, the day after Hugo's medication ran out, he reverted back to peeing in small amounts and running back and forth to the litter box all the time. And so we were like, okay, great, what do we do now? So I called the vets yesterday, and they suggested a couple of things. Either we take him in for x-rays and extra testing, or we extend the medication for a few more days to see if that helps clear it up. Maybe he didn't have it for long enough for it to clear up the system, or whatever. And so since we're moving tomorrow, we decided to just extend the medication for a few more days. Hopefully that will help clear it up, and if not, then we'll have to take him back to a vet next week and get him checked out. So he's kind of better, but kind of not at the same time. It's really annoying. He's fine in terms of, like, he's eating fine, he's drinking fine, his behavior hasn't really changed that much other than running to the toilet a lot more. He still sleeps all day. As you can see, he has not moved at all since I started recording. He's perfectly happy in his little snuggle thing there. But yeah. So other than that, New Year's Eve was pretty low-key for us this year. We had planned on going to a friend's house for dinner and just ring in the New Year, but the day before New Year's Eve I was really ill, really ill, and was not feeling well at all. So we decided to stay in. Perry went down and got some ice cream. So we vegged out, had some ice cream, watched TV, and rang in the New Year. And so yeah, it was nice and laid back. The New Year's Day, we decided to go to IKEA. We had originally planned to go to IKEA today, but we ended up decided to go on New Year's Day. Turns out there's a ferry that runs from Pier 11, which is just down the road from us here, by Wall Street. And it's like 20 minutes, takes you straight to IKEA, drops you off right at the IKEA there. And so yeah, we thought we'd go to IKEA because we're moving into an apartment with absolutely nothing other than an airbed and whatever we have in our suitcases. So we were going to need some really basic things to survive for the next few weeks until our stuff arrives, like a couple of plates and some cutlery maybe, and a pot and a pan, and you know, just some basic stuff for the bathroom, and just really inexpensive things, to be honest, because we don't want to replace the things we already have or buy extras necessarily. So for the most part we just got really basics, minimum that we needed. And we also picked up a couple of bits of furniture that we needed because we actually don't own these. We don't own a dining table. We've actually never had a dining table. So we got again, we didn't go for a particularly, we only got something relatively inexpensive, again because we are a bit concerned about how stuff's going to fit in our apartment. We're sure everything's going to fit, we're just not sure what the arrangement's going to be. So we bought one of those dining tables that sort of extends as well, so it can be quite small but it can also be extended to be bigger, which is good because, like I said, I'm not sure how it's going to fit in our space. and a couple of chairs to go with that. And then I also got one of these sort of like bouncing chairs. It's not a full-on glider or rocking chair. We were looking to get one of those for when we have the baby, but to be quite honest, I'm not sure where we would fit one of those, because those can be quite big. They're also quite expensive, which, whilst not the end of the world, I would be happy to invest in something like that. We're a little bit conscious about spending too much right now, so and I don't want to spend like a ton of money on things for the baby and things that aren't necessarily, you don't need to necessarily spend a ton of money on it. And IKEA had these really good chairs that also bounce, but they're at a very good angle for my back, and it comes with like the ottoman as well, so I can put my feet up, so it's really good. I sort of sat in it and I just didn't want to get up. I was like, this will do. I'll take this one. And so we ordered one of those as well, so that'll be coming. So the big bits of furniture IKEA are delivering tomorrow. We're also moving tomorrow, and I have my next doctor's appointment tomorrow, so it's gonna be a busy day. So tomorrow morning, or tonight, or today basically, we have to pack up this apartment. Tomorrow morning we have to get all our stuff downstairs into the lobby by 9:30. Then Perry's hired a man in a van again to come help him move everything, because I can't lift anything, I can't do anything. I'm really no help with moving, other than packing my stuff up. So Perry and this guy are going to load up the van, take the furniture and take our stuff and the boys up to the apartment, and then whilst I go to the doctor, then Perry's going to be at the apartment waiting for the IKEA delivery, and then I'll just go join him once I'm done at the doctor's, and that'll be us moved in essentially. So tomorrow's going to be busy, but more so for him than me, because there's not a lot that I can do about it. I'm not really going to be assembling IKEA furniture, and I'm not going to really be able to do much in the way of moving things, but I think once I get there I'll be able to help with sorting and organising and putting things away and stuff like that. But other than that, I've been trying really hard to get on top of all the admin stuff I've been wanting to do. I'm just so behind. I'd wanted to get most of this stuff done by the end of last week, but I just hadn't done it. Both lacking in motivation and time, things getting in the way, other things cropping up. So yeah, it's just been a bit frustrating more than anything else. And I also have some plans for doing like a website for both like the podcast and my designs and stuff like that, so it's just having a central place for everything to be. So Perry and I are working on that together, sort of in the background. I'm not sure when that'll be ready or how soon or anything like that. It's just sort of something we're working away on here and there when we have a bit of extra time. So I'm trying, that's why I don't have too many things cast on right now either. I'm trying to get a bunch of this admin stuff done, and I'm trying to use that as an incentive to get it done, because I know if I've got stuff on the needles that I want to knit, I'm not going to do the admin stuff. So to get the admin stuff done, then I can sit down and play with my knitting essentially and have fun with that. So yeah, I think that pretty much covers it for today and what I've been up to. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I need to share with you guys. I think that's it for now. It's been what? I'm still not 100% better. I am mostly better, but I'm still a bit sniffly, so I don't feel very sick anymore, which is nice. It's been quite grey and rainy the last couple of days. But yeah, so I'm looking forward to the weekend, looking forward to moving into our place and starting to feel a bit more settled. I think I have one more podcast next week before Vogue Knitting Live, which is really exciting. I'm really looking forward to it. Like I said, I've said this before as well, I'm not planning on hosting any podcaster meetups or anything for Vogue Knitting Live or anything like that. But by all means, if you are coming and you see me around, by all means come up and say hi. I would love to meet you guys. I just don't want to commit to try and planning anything. It's just too much going on for me right now to worry about logistics and stuff like that. So if you do happen to see me around, please do come by. Do stop me and say hi. I really don't mind. Last year and at other events that I've been to, people have said to me afterwards, oh, I saw you but I didn't want to come up and say anything. Please do. I really don't mind. it is always lovely to meet viewers and people who watch the podcast and actually get to see them in real life. So by all means, do that. And I'll probably talk a little bit more about that and my plans for Vogue Knitting Live this year next week in terms of purchases and things like that. So yeah, thank you so much for joining me this week. I hope you enjoy it, and I will be back with you guys soon. Have a happy knitting week. Enjoy the start of the new year. I hope it's going well for you guys, and yeah, till next time, bye.